NASCAR 2003 is one of those titles that's coveted. It was the final in the long line of NASCAR racing titles from the Papyrus Design Group. And starting back with the original release in 1994, Papyrus was steadily able to put out this almost biannual release improvement upon their core simulator for us to enjoy. And so when all good things came to an end, like they so often do, the 2003 edition was that final piece de resistance, the final version, the one that we all look back at and still play to this day. But if you go read reviews from when NASCAR 2003 first came out, it really was seen as just another yearly type release. Both the 2002 version and this 2003 version were both just the next year updated, a few new tracks, a few new cars. And there were some new features, but by and large, they were just evolutions of one of the versions that came out just a few years earlier in 2001, the revolutionary NASCAR Racing 4. NASCAR Racing 4 was hyped beyond belief. You see, in the late 90s, when Papyrus showed off what they could do with the at-home computer racing sim with Grand Prix Legends, and although many learned to love this foray into the vintage Grand Prix racing world, many were waiting for Papyrus to now update their amazing NASCAR series to be with this improved physics and graphics and simulation engine. And so when Papyrus released NASCAR 3 in 1999, many were shocked to see that it was still using the original NASCAR racing engine with little refinements and improvements, but the same core simulation engine that had been in use all the way since the late 1980s with the Indianapolis 500 sim. There were in fact demos of NASCAR 3 which used this new and improved engine, and might have been what some of the community saw that really made everybody think that this next NASCAR game was going to be using it. You can check them out at Race Sim Central. Tim over there has a lot of that stuff archived. But whether it was just the engine not being ready for it and all the different tools and things not being able to be developed, or if it was Sierra that told Papyrus that it just wasn't going to be good, it was too difficult for these NASCAR fans to use, or a combination of both. But for whatever the reason was, NASCAR 3 was on the old tried and true engine. And so when NASCAR 4 was announced and that it was going to use the updated physics engine, this was the sim that everybody was waiting for. And when it was released, it lived up to the expectations. This sim was reviewed incredibly well. There really wasn't a lot of criticism for it, maybe that it just was difficult to run on systems of the time. But it was so far advanced, so many leaps and bounds ahead of where the NASCAR sims were before it, that watching NASCAR 3 footage and NASCAR 4 footage side by side, you can hardly believe they're just one generation a game apart. And looking at NASCAR 4, if you're familiar with NASCAR 2003, you'll feel very at home. It's very, very similar to how the sim ended up becoming with 2002 and 2003, and you can see why the press and the critics really just saw these additional additions as refinements or yearly releases of NASCAR 4. It truly was revolutionary, but we don't look at it much these days because we're all in 2003 with the plethora of tracks and mods and everything great that has been created for that sim over the last 20 years. But I'm here today to tell you that NASCAR 4 is still worth your time, and that it does some things differently or maybe even better than NASCAR 2003 does. For as great as NASCAR 2003 is, I think most can agree that one area that it lacks is in Superspeedway AI racing. This is one of the areas that Papyrus did put some work into to try to create the massive pack racing that we saw on TV and that everybody wanted. If you read forums and blogs and things from the time, everybody wanted this 3 wide, 10 rows deep type racing, especially like we saw at Talladega. And so with the adjustments to the physics models and some AI tweaks, they did create more of this pack type racing with NASCAR 2003. But with it came some flaws in how the AI behaves with lap traffic or how raceable the AI is overall around a superspeedway, making it sometimes quite trivial to race against. It's not necessarily that they did a bad job on it, but the type of racing that it was just maybe isn't quite as interesting when you're sitting behind the sim steering wheel as it might be in real life, with the variability of real cars and those minor things that make it a bit more interesting than a sterile sim environment. So if we wind the clock back just a few years to 2000 and 2001, the seasons that NASCAR 4 is based on, racing on superspeedways in NASCAR was quite a bit different. It reflected much more of the racing of the 90s that was a little more spread out, still packs, but maybe groups of cars, 3 and 4 in a bunch. And towards the start or any restarts of the race, you might have seen larger packs, but they would get a bit more spread out over the race. Handling came into play much more, as well as traditional slingshot style passing. And this is the type of superspeedway racing that's recreated in NASCAR 4. I have to thank one of the great long-term members of the Classic Sim and Papyrus Racing Sim community, Pavel. Pavel is the one that makes a lot of the tracks for IndyCar Racing 2 or the old NASCAR Sims, NASCAR 1 and 2 and 3. And in some recent conversation, he mentioned to me how great NASCAR 4 was at superspeedway racing. And so based off that recommendation and the fact that I hadn't played a lot of NASCAR Racing 4, I went and took another look at it, and I have been absolutely blown away. And so to show this off, I've set up a bit of a race at Daytona in NASCAR Racing 4 with the 2001 cars and some decent length too, 60 laps, so that we have to take a pit stop and so that things spread out just a little bit to show you really what the sim was all about. And so starting from the back, I'll try to work my way up a truly challenging field and see how well I can do at this mini Daytona. So buckle up, it's going to be a wild ride. Alright, so looking at this, like I said in the introduction, you might think it's NASCAR 2003 because these sims were so close, and it really was just a small change from year to year. I looked at all the features that were added with NASCAR 2002 and then 2003, and there's nothing major, I would say. A lot of little things. There were things that aren't even really used anymore, like the tutorials from Darrell Waltrip in NASCAR 2002, and there's some of the school stuff in 2003. There's some replay editing tools and things like this that I don't see a lot of people take advantage of. The core sim was very much the same all the way from NASCAR 4 and through. And the car models were improved a little bit. Of course, the ability to do modding is the biggest one that was added to 2003 and might be one of the main reasons why, beyond it just being the most recent one, that it was kind of the favorite. But the core simulation is very much the same, and I would say the handling in this sim, which we won't get a lot of sense for in this race, I would say, but the handling in general is actually quite a bit different and maybe a little easier in a very good way. We'll come through turns 3-4. It's a bit longer of a race than I would usually do for kind of a quick look, but I think you really need to put in some serious time to see how the AI are different, and I hope it's a good race. But I think it should be, just from some of my testing. So we'll come around, take the green flag. There'll be a little bit of waiting to let things string out a little bit before we can make some progress, but hopefully can work my way towards the front. Should have to pit at some point, but there we go. Away we go. And we do have restrictor plates. This is about 2000, 2001 era spec of car and everything. So again, not too dissimilar from 2003, but just a little bit different, especially in how the racing behaves overall. All right, get it up to fourth gear. Behind Don Levy's machine, the 90 there. I do have an add-on car set for this. I was able to track down some paint schemes just to make sure all the cars are real for 2001. I can put a link for that in the description. But as far as I can tell, there's not a lot of add-ons and things for this out there. I'm sure there's a few car sets you can find. I think I saw one for 99 and 2002 as well. But because these other sims came out shortly after this, people didn't really develop anything for this. So come around to complete the first lap, right off the end of the pack here, and we'll swing by. Everybody's all still packed up. You can see up front, maybe just a little bit, some of the leaders are breaking slightly away. Come down into turn number 1. I guess we'll stay on the low side. We got, I think, Todd Bodine there in the 66. He's going to slot down in front of me. So try not to lose the back of the pack. Always risky being on the very end of the pack. 2001, of course, especially Daytona, remembered for the awful crash of Dale Earnhardt. And it's so bad for so many reasons. I think that's obvious and goes without saying. But 2001 was such an exciting season in NASCAR, with Dodge coming back and Fox taking over the broadcasts. A lot of storylines. Dale Earnhardt incorporated his team being so successful during the year. Dale Jr., although he had already been successful, really coming to prominence within this season. Michael Waltrip finally getting wins. It's too bad, it's terrible for so many reasons, like I said, but it all got overshadowed somewhat in our memories. But you can see here so much different already. For somebody that's played a lot of NASCAR 2003, you'll see it right away, but the pack is stringing out a little bit, and I'll just stay put, let myself work around. There's not really anywhere to go anyways, but you can see it's strung out that little bit more and makes it very dynamic. I have the AI on 100%, which you can go higher if you need to, but I found them to be very balanced, and you really can't run alone very well. So you really need to draft with folks to try to work your way towards the front and try to get up to Terry Labonte here in the number 5. Got Kevin Harvick there, his rookie season, driving Dale Earnhardt's cars. Bill Elliott's going to work his way back around me. You can see the AI are a little wonky in the corners. The suspension's compressing quite a lot on the right, so they're a little sideways like a boat, but otherwise they look pretty good in how they behave. And so much more advanced than things were just with the additions slightly before this with NASCAR 3, NASCAR 99, NASCAR 2, all sims that I play quite a lot. It's just crazy how just a couple years later, this was on our hard drives. Or on everybody's hard drive. I should say, this is a sim that I missed at the time that it was coming out. I was big into NASCAR 3, and I went straight to NASCAR 2003, which I'm sure is not that uncommon for folks. These sims came out so quickly that it felt like NASCAR 4 just wasn't around for very long. And same with NASCAR 2002. That sim was really only around for a year before it got replaced, essentially, with 2003. But this was one I had skipped at the time. It just, the timing wise, and I was very much into NASCAR 3. And didn't do the upgrade, and I have to imagine it would have been hard to run on systems at the time anyway. But what an improvement it is. And I absolutely love the racing here. So, worked underneath Harvick. We do have the full tank, so there's no way to accelerate your fuel burn, so that is something they did add with some of the later additions. So we do have the full tank, and it's not the 13-gallon tank like was the rules for 2003. So that's why we are running such a long race to have a pit stop in it. We should be able to make it over 50 laps before we pit, but also tire wear is going to become a concern, so we'll see what I can do there. Just hang on to the back of the pack, hang out in 40th. I might have to try to make a move here because the leaders are breaking away. So try not to get into the 90 car. It gets checked up just a little bit in front. See if I can keep it through out on the low side. Cars break below the dotted line, which is so cool to see. Bill Elliott's going to storm up the outside. Ugh. Try to get back in line behind him. There we go. Full concentration, trying to not mix it up with anybody else. Really easy to just clip somebody's fender. The mirror is quite good, but it's still so easy just to come down a little too soon, even if your spotter might clear you. And this is an issue in NASCAR 2003 as well. A spotter will clear you when you're very, very fractionally clear, and by the time you move your car, you're not clear anymore. Alright, we got a good slipstream here on a wall trip. And you get these slingshots, and you got to time them right, because we're actually going to catch him right at the end of the straightaway. I'll just have enough time to dip below him. Gave it a little bit of a lift there, just to make sure I was going to hold my line. And the thing I like to see, and something you don't see in NASCAR 2003, is up front, that leading pack hasn't completely run away from us. Because you can spread out the AI a bit in NASCAR 2003, but then they'll kind of run away from each other permanently. And that does end up happening here, but it feels much more organic, and you'll have cars that can make their way up the pack and catch other cars even without the draft. It's very, very cool as we got a little bit of a mix-up here. Try to take advantage of it, go down low. Got a massive run now that, similar to Elliott had a couple laps ago. I got to try to get back on the banking here, though, for the corner. Man, squeeze down low. Got a 3 wide up front. A bunch of single file in the middle. going here in the low side. Come up behind the 7. We got Rusty's scheme. The pack I did find had some of the alcohol schemes back in, but by and large, the sim I think came with 30 or so of the real drivers, so there weren't too many missing. I think I only needed to download 15 cars or so to round out the whole set, replacing some of those alcohol-sponsored cars with the real ones, and paint shop and all that stuff works very much the same. The sim itself, graphics-wise, I think looks pretty good. I am running it in a 4x3 window, but I think I'll be able to crop it with the video to be a little more widescreen. There might be a way to get it to actually run in widescreen. But some of those extra things, like the cam tool to move your cockpit view and stuff like that, I'm not sure exists for NASCAR 4, so it's a little more dated looking on the screen, just being in a box and being widescreen. But it adds to its charm a little bit. Got a good, strong line of cars on the outside. I'll try to see if we can keep low and get around them all. Got myself up to 35th. Felt like I've made more progress than that, but still a lot of cars in front. With under 50 laps to go. We've got a breakaway now up front, really single file. They're going to really start pulling out there. NASCAR 4 also was the return of the manufacturers into the Papyrus NASCAR sims. I believe from NASCAR 2 on, they no longer had the different makes officially in the sim. I think here and there were, but I know, for example, the trucks in NASCAR 99 don't have makes and things like that. So this was a big deal for folks. I believe every car does use the same shape in NASCAR 4 here. So they don't quite look right, especially the Pontiac I found, and the Dodges look a little funny. But all in all, it does a great job, and it's a lot of fun. I'm loving this racing, the Superspeedway style, like it is. And we've got one of the other Dodge cars up there. I think that would be Casey Atwood, if I'm not mistaken. Very much a rookie who had a lot of promise. Everybody was calling him the next Jeff Gordon, as was so often done. Everybody was always looking for the next Jeff Gordon. So stick right in behind Rusty here. Got Dale Jr. up there too. It seems like every rookie that was coming along was going to be the next Jeff Gordon, and Casey Atwood is, I think, your classic rushed through the program type driver. Recently watching the 1998 Busch Series season, and he, I think, is 17 racing in the Busch Series, and he had a few good moments. I know Nashville, specifically the short track, Fairgrounds Speedway in Nashville, he had the pole and led some laps. I think ultimately he crashed out of that, and just wasn't given the time, unfortunately. Out of the corner. I found once you get into the stints, the tires do wear out a bit, and it can become quite easy to understeer or push your way up the track, especially if you're in a heavy slipstream. Going 194, it's a little bit slower than the racing is in NASCAR 2003, which I think helps it as well. Not much slower, but a few miles an hour slower. Getting strung out back here, but this is so cool. I mean, having grown up watching a lot of this type of racing in earlier years as well, I liked that style. It was a little more of a driver skill involved. It wasn't necessarily as random because everybody wasn't completely packed up all the time. So I find myself in NASCAR 2003 trying to get the cars to race like this, and it's so hard. It's a balancing act. You can kind of do it, but they don't quite race like this. They'll get spread out and never really catch each other, but this kind of ebbs and flows a little bit more, which is really fun. We're strung out now, and we're right at the top of our rev range. You can see it was a little bit harder there for me to make the first corner. So I have a little bit of a run on Rusty behind Sterling. I'll run the bottom here. He's going to actually have a bit better of a run with the slipstream down the back straightaway of the draft. back a bit. Not sure what I was doing there. Caught in behind Sterling on the low side. Rusty's going to fall back now. He doesn't have anybody to slipstream with in front of him. Actually won one of these races at this point. I've only done a couple of these 60 lappers, and either get involved in a crash at some point or lose the pack here, but I'm pleasantly surprised we're sticking with them. So nowhere to go in the bottom. We'll run high, come up behind, I think Kyle Petty in front. Junior there on the low side. I'm going to lose a ton of momentum there. I had to lift just a little bit. He slid up in front of me. Slide back down behind Rusty. Running the default fast setup, and nothing's been changed. You'll see that a lot of if you're into modding and things with NASCAR 2003 is, again, I got a big run coming onto the back straightaway, but it's hard to figure out what to do with it. So it's stacked up behind Junior again. It's actually going to let Wallace slip down low. If you're familiar with tweaking things for NASCAR 2003, track AI and all that, it's all very much the same in NASCAR Racing 4 as far as all the ini files and parameters and that. And I haven't touched it at all. This is completely stock. The only thing that's different here is a few of the cars. But I've got that fast stock setup and the stock AI. You can just see how interesting it is to race against. At least I think so. Bit of a run, dip down low, but I'm not going to have anybody to slipstream with here, so yeah, there they go, pulling ahead again. Jeremy Mayfield's trying to work his way around the outside as well. Always loved the look of that Mobile 12 car. Rusty and his paint schemes were pretty much the same thing, just with different decals on it, and they look so sharp next to each other, but I always liked the Mobile paint scheme just a little bit more with the prancing horse on the side and the big red logo. Just looks so good on that car. Alright, down low on the 45. Kyle Petty there. Work past him. Petty's got 3 cars in the series in 2001. 44, I think, with Buckshot Jones. Got 43, John Andretti, and then Kyle Petty there. 4's looking down low on me. Finally worked past some of that pack, and I think I'm going to just about hit the top 30 here. 31st now. Car's handling is starting to get a little slidey coming into the corners. We'll have to see here. I don't think I'll change tires at all once we get into the pits, so the 4 is going to come along outside. We'll just have a few laps to go by the time we absolutely need to pit, so it doesn't make sense to change 4 tires, but maybe changing 2 while we get like a tank of gas might be the right call. Just do a splash and go, might be better. This makes me want to race a lot of races in this. The handling around the short tracks, like I said, you do get an impression, actually, a little bit more than I was thinking of the handling. As we're seeing it here, just with the car washing away. But on the short tracks and things, that spin behavior that you get in NASCAR 2003 is absolutely not here in this. You can still lose the rear end, but it feels a little more believable in my mind. Quite a lot easier, generally. He's got the Melling 92. I think that's Stacy Compton, right? He definitely drove that car at some point. But that's another cool looking car. The car washes up a bit. It was interesting. It was just late on the turn in, gawking at the 92. believe that's the milling machine, though. Alright, clear on the outside. Track model-wise, all the tracks, I think, are using very much the same models as they have in NASCAR 2003. It's a huge run here in the back straightaway, but nowhere to go at all. Just a let off. So we got cars 3 wide in front. It's giving a huge punch of air. We're just sucking up behind them all. But it feels like this is a similar model to Daytona is in NASCAR 2003. There's a few additional tracks in NASCAR 2003 that were added to the series schedules. I'm losing a couple spots. They are passing around the high side, which you don't get a lot in NASCAR 2003 either. I find in NASCAR 2003, and it's a little bit the case here, but especially in NASCAR 2003, if you stick on the low side, you're more or less work your way to the front. But as you can see here, I'm getting passed by cars on all sides if I'm not blocking and everything. And again, we're falling off that lead pack just a little bit, but it's not a ton. I'm not trying to put down NASCAR 2003. I absolutely love that sim. I've made some videos recently about it as it reaches its 20th anniversary. It's just neat to see this as the evolution it was, and again, it's a little better in ways, or different at least. Maybe interesting for some to see. It's understeer a lot there. All right, it's really tricky at this point. 25 laps in. Take a quick look at my tires here. I might have cropped it out slightly, but the right front's wearing out a little bit. But it might not be worth changing them. We're definitely staying low. You get the same spotter sound, I believe, as the default, although I haven't heard the default in years. It's a really complete sim, though. Every track, most of the cars, and it's very, very easy. It's built in to create additional cars for this. It was encouraged and built into the game, so you're meant to fill in some of the blanks and correct logos and all that stuff. Just definitely don't do them like they used to. Run on Rusty here, coming down towards turn 1. Not really bold enough to stick it below him, but he washes up just a little bit, almost into Sterling Marlin, as I almost did the same to the 4. Maybe Bobby Hamilton, maybe Robbie Gordon, perhaps. I always forget. They switched around a lot from year to year, so I've got nobody to slipstream with on the low side here. Entries into the corners is what's hurting that right front. Probably dial some of that out with this setup. But it's neat to actually have to drive the Superspeedway a little bit. So often it's just foot to the floor. Got a nice balance to it. Interested to try out Talladega. I would expect it to be slightly easier, just with how wide that track is. It's a wash up quite a bit. We've got a couple cars in the apron up ahead to be avoiding. Some traffic or something. But everybody's getting bunched up here a little bit. The 7's coming down low. Marlin, 3 wide on the high side then. Oh boy. Not exactly what I wanted. Oh, losing so many spots then. I don't know exactly what happened there. It'll be easier to see in replay, but it seems like they were all getting stacked up front. All right, we got it back down to 2 wide. Always nervous when you get 3 wide. On the high side still, it's not really a good place to be. You're going to keep falling back. Almost back to where we started. Good run. Had a run. Nowhere to go, though. Waiting to try to find a hole in the low side, but I think it's going to be at the very end of the line at this point. So we'll come, I think, grab halfway, and pretty much back to where I started. Been having a lot of videos lately, or racing, I guess, where I'm towards the back, especially with the ovals, but as long as there's something interesting to race, I don't really care if it's for first or 30th. But I definitely got caught out there, ending up on the high side and all the way towards the back. All right, got a nice positive momentum here. Will I clear Terry before the corner? Right on the end of the rev limit. There we go. Wow, such a run. Been able to clear him. That is so cool. It's just so dynamic. It's interesting to race, as everybody's almost single file now. A few laps ago, we were all packed up. Halfway home. There it is. The 21. It's Elliott Sadler. Just clear Sterling Marlin coming down into turn 1. Yeah, it's wild how it goes from the dense pack now to almost completely spread out, as it gave Elliott a little bit of a bump there. Let off the throttle quite a bit, though. That's going to kill my momentum. I've got a lot to learn. It is one of the things that's interesting as well, because I really haven't learned exactly how it works yet. And I'm sure once you figure out all the little quirks, or where you can kind of abuse the AI into backing out and stuff, you know, then it'll be a bit easier. Maybe solvable like it is in NASCAR 2003, but so far in doing the handful of races I haven't quite cracked the code yet, and it is still very entertaining. So run up, right against the wall, just washed up completely, lose a few spots there. All right, going into the corner high now with worn tires is definitely not going to work. How worn are they? Oh, right front's actually wearing out, so I might have to change right sides specifically. I have 23 laps with the fuel I have. Can pit at any point. Definitely going to want to pit with AI. Getting down to pit speed is the trickiest thing at any of the Superspeedways, most of the ovals. You're just going so fast. To slow the car down, come off the banking successfully is truly an art. So I'm once again going to be on the outside here coming into turn 1. I can hear everybody in the comments screaming. Almost could have slid in front of the 26 there, but he comes back down low before I can do it. Trying to sideswipe each other. He's getting packed up again. So I'm sitting in 36. We got a few cars out back, but they're not falling off completely. It's very cool. One of the big problems with NASCAR 2003 is when you do have a lot slower cars, they absolutely ruin the flow of the race, because the AI just don't know how to get around them. And from what I can tell in practice with this, it definitely happens as well, where the AI, if there's a slower car, they'll just stick up right behind them, slow down a bunch, and then try to find a way around. So that's not really resolved. But the thing that's different here is that nobody really loses the pack completely. And so even the slowest cars that are behind me, the few that are behind me, are still behind us and not really a lap down or anything like that. And eventually they will. You'll lose cars completely, especially after the pit stop cycle. But it's much mitigated, much better than it is in NASCAR 2003 with the slow traffic. All right, 3 wide once again. It's not really what I want. The 90 by. Slide in. Sterling's down low. Always on the high side here. Absolutely killing my progress. Here comes that last pack of cars, just to really put the stamp on it and send me all the way to the back. So when we go in the pits, we're just going to change right sides. So I think the lefts will be fine for that extra 10 laps. I really got to get into the low side here. Slide right in behind Sterling, coming out of turn 4. There we go. See if I can get some momentum going and just try to pass on the low side and work my way to the front, but it's really hard to time it. It's that slingshot as I got a bit of a run on him here, coming down into turn 1, look low. Then I really got to let out of it so that I don't pinch the car or run up into him. Almost do anyway there. Lose a ton of momentum. It is really tricky. Bit of an ill-handling car. I could improve it a little bit with setup and things, but the challenge is good. All right. Around him at least one car down. 36 more. So I'll work my way back towards, I think I got up to 30th at one point. Draft on the 90 here, down the back straightaway. Come up a little bit short coming down into turn 3. He actually gives me the space, but I backed out of it there. I think I would have slid up into him anyway. So Marlin's now going to come up behind me. Everybody's well behaved here. I haven't seen them wreck so much, but there have been a couple crashes that were not caused by myself. Of course, plenty that were. But it's good. I know a lot of folks like the crashes. I prefer it to be relatively clean. It's a little more interesting of a race then. All right, nice run onto the back straightaway. And I'm going to try to keep this one. Dive down low on the 90. I squeeze him up just a little bit to stay in Terry's draft. Well, he gets the high side there, but got plenty of draft off the cars in front. All right, sticking in down low though. Great door-to-door coming out of turn 4. Every pass is so difficult. You really have to plan it. No idea if I'd be able to actually make it to the front. Just trying to keep my foot in it and use the brake just a little bit, but even then, the car is understeering so much into the corners. Just check that tire wear again, about half on the tire, 22 laps to go. I'm hoping some of the AI pit a bit before we have to, because we're only going to pit with a few laps left if we run it to the end of the fuel tank. One car on the apron up there, he's going to pit. Doesn't look like it. Door to door again. Elliott Sadler on the outside, so I'm making a bit of progress now. So everybody's packing back up in front. When they get into a pack, they slow each other down a little bit, which is realistic. That's what would happen. You also get a much bigger slipstream because they're just punching that huge hole in the air, so it's much easier to catch up. But when they get strung on single file, it becomes very hard to do anything but also be single file. It's looking down low, but it's not going to get me. Elliott Sadler, that is. Got Bill Elliott in front, a couple cars up. All right, 20 to go. Doing all right now. Hop back up a little bit as the 26 is going to come outside. Oh, we got him 3 wide in front. Pinch it down low to make sure I don't run wide. This car bogs down just a little bit there. All right. Past Blaney. It's Dave Blaney. That was always a good looking car as well, that Amco oil sponsored car. A lot of good paint schemes. Prefer Terry Labonte's Kellogg's of just a few years earlier with the yellow, green, and red, but that one's not too bad either, Tony the Tiger. into one. Just trying to get the car to turn, but I can't. Terry's going to come back down low. Oh, I'm lucky I was able to slide up high there without hitting anybody. Really feels like the car is wearing out now. Stay in the draft. A little worried that I'm on the high side here, but hoping that I can get around Terry. Although he's right there. We'll come through turns 3 and 4. I'm just waiting to see some cars dip onto the pits. Wow, it was clear for just a second there. Nice run with Jeremy Mayfield, but Labonte's sticking it in. So really have to get out of it into turn 1. Almost hit the wall. Gonna lose a whole bunch of spots. It's so frustrating. Slide back in behind Marlon. I'm sure it's more frustrating for folks watching. You can always see what I should have done. But it's a lot of fun. I'm grinning. You can't see me in this one, but I'm grinning because it's so much fun. Just trying to hold on to the draft. It's so realistic. I just can't get over how this draft changing the way that it does just feels so authentic. It's really, there's no easy way to kind of mathematically do this. You think you could just stick to the low side, but then the car's handling's going away, making it really hard to do that. Sometimes you get these mega runs and you don't have anywhere you can go. There's Marlon here on the low side. He's doing something weird, not really drafting with anybody. I don't think I'm going to clear him before this turn, maybe. Just barely. There we go. Stick it in, slide it right there. Around Sterling, got a big understeer coming out of the turn that time. I'll recognize it early so that I don't run into the wall. The draft seems to extend quite far though. So even back here, in NASCAR 2003, I'd be worried about losing the 66 from this distance, but it doesn't seem to happen in NASCAR 4 as the car just washes up, so I'm going to lose more spots. Whoa, the 90 car slides in. All right, lose 2 spots there. Got a few slow cars in front though. I'm ready to jump on the brakes. This looks like Michael Waltrip down low. Haven't seen him yet. Of course, winner of the Daytona 500, that of course overshadowed. Right, that right front's almost all the way worn out. Got 15 laps to go. Should only have to take a splash of fuel. It's going to be very quick. It's almost... I feel like I have to change the tire. But it might lose me some time. The tire is very worn out. The thing that would be better would be to pit now and have a few more laps to run with it. But... wow, big slipstream from these cars. I'm going to be right on the low side coming into turn 3. Alright, a couple cars looking down low. I thought they might be coming in. I was going to do it with them. Yeah, it'd be great to have more laps on the after the next set of tires. I guess if it goes all the way to the last couple of laps, I may not change that right front, although it feels like it's going to blow. It'd be really tricky to, if I changed it and everybody else didn't, I would have no hope. All these questions. We're fighting for last place in this, I guess. Everybody's getting a lot more spread out now. But not in a crazy way. And it could all pack up again if everybody gets everything together and drafts with each other. The pack in the middle's forming a bit again. Coming to turn 1. Oh, I gotta slide out wide right against Blaney, door to door. Pushes up though, thankfully. Really loses out for himself. Gives me the spot. Need to arc the corner more, but it's hard to get the wide entry all the time with cars to your left and right. It's all going to come down to this finish, though, at the pit stop. And what do I do about tires? It's almost going to blow here. I'm going to have to pit in the next couple of laps, and I absolutely need to change that right front. Oh, I gave Sterling a bump there, and he was turning a little bit at the same time. Luckily, held on to a good job. Mr. Marlin. Come out of turn 4. Need a car to pit with me. I'm just waiting to see if I can get a car to pit with me. I am prepared to jump in the pits. Got 11 laps to go. It's wild how far you could run on a tank of fuel. Yeah, running low on fuel, okay. So I can see the fuel gauge in front of me, and it's fuel pressure, unlike all of the previous NASCAR sims that just gave you a percentage, which is very unrealistic. It's a fuel pressure gauge in this. So I'm hoping they're going to pit here. Oh, I saw Bill Elliott looking. Still close to 9 on the gauge. Everybody's still packed up. We're all single file, though. All right, 10 laps to go. And I can see the fuel starting to go down, so I have to pit here either this lap, ideally, maybe the next lap, and I have to change that right front. So if the AI don't, then I was never going to win this. I'm not going to win it anyway. But if the AI don't change, I'm going to be nowhere for the last handful of laps, but I've had fun thus far. Alright, seems like folks are mixing it up a little bit. Could we have some cars come into the pits? I gotta pit this time. The fuel's running out, so hopefully somebody else pits with me, but here we go. And thank God. Get it down third gear. Well, everybody's coming in the pits. You got cars going everywhere. I'm onto the grass. How do I get to my stall? There we go. Come down into the pits. I don't know if we're going to get a yellow flag there. That was a nuts pit entry.
Go, go, go. Go, go, go.
Run it off the limiter. Come on.
Keep it under.
I don't think I sped. And I think I'll gain quite a few spots there. That was a questionable pit entrance from everybody. Not so unrealistic. It's a mess when everybody tries to get in the pits at the same time in real life. But maybe one of those things that was improved with later additions. It's coming out of the pits here.
Clear pit lane. Don't forget, watch those gauges.
All right, I made out like a bandit through that pit stop.
Okay, merge when you can.
I'm gonna jump onto the track here and try to go as fast as I can, as everybody's gonna take that warm-up lane around the corner. Hopefully I can catch up to this pack in front, but I think I've gained maybe 20 spots through the pit stops. Absolutely wild trying to get on pit lane with everybody. And I think I saw quite a few cars that got rear-ended in the process. I don't know how I made it into the pits clean. I think I got away with it. So hope I can catch another car, but either way, might be a quiet final 8 laps. I'll have a car catch me potentially. Oh, I'm surprised everybody pitted on the same lap. That might be something that's adjustable through the pit windows. Yeah, in the top 20. I'm 18th now. That group ahead got away, and I've got a couple cars behind. I think Matt Kenseth behind me. It'll be Matt Kenseth in the 17 in 2001. It was maybe his rookie year, if I'm remembering correctly. We'll see in a second. Darrell Waltrip, I think, he was definitely retired at this point. All right, here comes the pack behind me, so it's going to be a bit of a defense to try to stay here in the top 20, but I'll see if I can do it. Car's handling fine once again, but I'm going quite a deal slower. And I don't know if we'll be able to catch this pack in front, but here comes Kenseth behind. Block him a little bit. He's got the 22 with him. I think Ward Burton, right? Right. He's not pushing me physically, but he's helping me speed up, gain quite a few miles an hour there. We've got a little pack of cars behind. Yeah, the thing's very spread out. And I think the lead pack is very much in the distance at this point. And we have this one little pack in front, which I don't know if we'll have time to catch. We'll see what the time difference is, though. It's 5.6 seconds through the last lap. Cars behind me are going too wide, which I'm going to try to block both lanes to stay in front of them. The line here. Yeah, I lost a couple tenths there, so it'll be hard to catch them. I don't think it'll happen with 6 laps to go, but the goal now is to stay in front of the little pack I do have here and see what happens. So a bit of a kerfuffle through the pit stops. That could be the distance I've set where everybody pretty much was bound to the same strategy, and maybe in a full race it would be a little bit different. Might be also possible to smooth out, but the racing before that, and even now, as Kenseth's looking down low, I just don't want to hook myself, but I'll block him there. I'm staying up front now. 5 more laps. The racing before that was just so fun, and even though I struggled with the handling, it just kept it really interesting, which I always get bored on the Superspeedways in NASCAR 2003. I get, they're not great either in the earlier NASCAR games. I had a lot of fun the other day doing it in NASCAR Legends, but it's a very different type of racing that with no restrictor plates and a lot of slow lap traffic and stuff that keeps it quite interesting, and very frequent pit stops. I was so surprised at how frequently you have to pit. So for the slipstreaming and restrictor plate type Superspeedway racing, it's hard to do in a way that's not like it is in NASCAR 2003, where it's a bit boring, at least with the stock stuff. But there's a lot of those quirks that you just can't get rid of. As Kenseth dips it inside, I just let him in there as I slid up. All right, he's got a little bit of a gap behind him, though. So if he's able to actually get around, I'll try to slide him behind and then work my way back around, as I think we're actually catching this group in front now. Again, I don't know if it's going to be quick enough to get him before the end of the race, as there comes Burton inside, too. Don't want to cause an accident here. So I'm stuck on the outside, though. Kenseth was able to sneak in there. Burton's just inside too, so I can't get right behind Kenseth. Might be able to get a nice slipstream here down the short chute before turn 1. There we go. All right, clear. Dive in front. All right, just Kenseth here. Should be able to get a run on him down the back straightaway. So I'm just going to catch him coming out of the corner. Had to lift out of it slightly there, but get up to the inside of him. All right, he's got a better run. That was not executed well. We've got the Conseco car, AJ Foyt's team behind. Oh, it's a slam into Kenseth there coming into the corner. That was close. Caught him at the wrong time. We all got bunched up though. All right, nice run onto the front straightaway with Kenseth. Dip into the inside, into the tri-oval. Oh, side by side. 2 laps to go. All right, get back around Kenseth. Fighting for 18th, but it feels like the win. All right, block him here. Down the back straightaway, weaving side to side. A little dirty. Fighting for those much needed points. It is a full season championship in 2001. Every race counts. All right, come to the line. I can see the white flag waving. 1 more lap to go.
White flag, 1 more lap to go.
We got a few slower cars in front, but I don't think they're going to play into this at all. It's Kenseth weaving around behind with the 14 trying to come out wide, but that's not going to work for him, and it might help slow down that whole pack just a little bit. Just go to the back straightaway. Got a bit of a lead, which is not ideal. Stay on the high side. I'm not going to give him my slipstream. All right, but we'll come down to turn 3. As here comes the 14 from behind. I think it's Ron Hornaday. But he's not going to have anything for me, so there it is. I'm going to finish 18th. That was an up and down battle, but so much fun. Absolutely a blast. And NASCAR 4 was quite the impressive title, as I actually run out of fuel. Wondering what's happening, but there goes all my fuel. But luckily we finished the race. So finishing 18th and having a great time doing it. So a really unique Superspeedway style race. It's very different than NASCAR Racing 2003 and it's a lot of fun. I think it's a mix of the handling changes in your own car, coupled with the AI not just being stacked side by side, they actually have somewhere to go. And the ebb and the flow of the pack. Sometimes they're all packed up, sometimes they'll get spread out, but they kind of come back together. I'd be really eager to see actually what it does over a full distance race, especially if that helps resolve a little bit of that issue we saw with the pitting, with everybody diving on the exact same lap. If it spreads that out a little bit, and then does the pack get formed back up, or does it really stay spread out from the first pit stop on? That would be interesting to see. And of course, there was no yellow flag there, which I was expecting there maybe to be one at some point, but no yellow flag. So if there was a wreck at some point, would that really change the complexion of it? But clearly NASCAR 4 was doing some really special stuff, and I like this type of racing much more on a super speedway. So hopefully a fun look at a sim that's a little bit forgotten these days, but one that I think, especially in this context, may deserve a bit more attention. So thank you for watching. This is GP Labs, and I'll see you all again next time.